The sun had barely risen over the endless stretch of golden wheat fields when the old farmhouse door creaked open. Out stepped a girl no older than 20, her boots sinking into the damp earth, her long braid swinging behind her shoulder. Her name was Lila Hart, the quiet farm girl who lived miles away from the nearest town. To most people, she was just a simple girl tending crops and feeding chickens, but to those who had ever tried to mess with her, she was a storm wrapped in silence. The morning air was crisp, filled with the hum of locusts and the distant moo of cows. Lila adjusted the strap of her worn leather backpack and started down the dirt path that led to the marketplace. Inside that bag was everything she needed for her day: vegetables, a notebook, and something else, something no one would ever suspect a farm girl to carry. As she walked, her mind drifted back to the past few weeks. The nearby town had become restless lately. A group of young bikers had been terrorizing travelers, snatching purses, breaking windows, laughing as they rode off into the dust. Everyone knew their leader, Rex Dalton, a tall, tattooed man with a sneer carved permanently on his face. He and his friend Blake were known as the Twin Engines of Chaos. They'd robbed an old man just last week and pushed a boy off his bicycle for fun. People avoided the main road now, but Lila, she wasn't like everyone else. She didn't take detours. She walked straight down the same road where the bikers usually prowled. Not because she was fearless, but because she was ready. That backpack she carried, it wasn't ordinary. For the last 2 nights, Lila had stayed up in her barn, tinkering with something she'd been designing since her father died. Her dad had been a mechanic, a quiet genius who built small machines and traps for wild coyotes that used to attack their chickens. When he passed away last winter, Lila had inherited his workshop, his notebooks, and his mind for invention, and after hearing what those bikers did to her neighbors, she decided to put her father's teachings to use. That morning, she wasn't going to town just to sell her produce. She was going to bait a trap. The sound of roaring engines echoed from the distance. 2 black bikes sped over the hill, their tires spitting dust like smoke. Lila didn't even flinch. She kept walking, her boots crunching on gravel, the corner of her lips curling slightly as if she had been expecting them.
"Hey, sweetheart!"
Rex's voice cut through the air. "Where you heading with that cute little bag? You lost." Blake laughed from behind, his bike zigzagging dangerously close. "Looks like farm girls carrying lunch for us." Lila didn't answer. She just looked up, those calm gray eyes of hers meeting theirs. And for a moment, Rex hesitated. There was something unnerving about her stillness, like staring into deep water where you couldn't see the bottom. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. Rex revved the throttle and swerved closer. The blast of air hit Lila's braid across her face. "I said, what's in the bag? Country doll," he shouted, leaning close enough that his breath smelled like cigarettes and arrogance. Lila's voice was calm, barely above a whisper. "You really want to know?" That tone, it wasn't scared, it wasn't trembling. It was measured, patient, as if she was waiting for something. Blake snorted.
"Oh yeah, we do."
"Hand it over." And before she could take another step, Rex reached out and snatched the backpack off her shoulder. The strap tore slightly, but Lila didn't move. She just stood there, watching him toss it between his hands like a prize. "Let's see what farm girls keep in their bags." Rex grinned, unzipping it with a flick. But the moment the zipper slid open, a soft click sounded from inside, a sound so faint he almost missed it. Lila tilted her head slightly. "Oops," she said quietly. "You might not want to do that." But it was too late. A sudden burst of compressed air exploded from the bag, followed by a white cloud that wrapped around the bikers like smoke. The engines sputtered and both men coughed violently. The bag dropped to the dirt with a thud. "What the hell?" Rex gasped, wiping his eyes. Lila didn't move closer. She just stood a few steps away, her voice calm as she spoke through the haze. "You know, coyotes used to steal from my farm too. My dad taught me how to deal with them. The trick," she said, "is to bait them with something they think they want." The bikers stumbled, trying to regain balance. The white cloud wasn't smoke. It was a powdered irritant Lila had made from crushed peppers and mechanical dust. It burned the eyes and throat, leaving anyone exposed coughing uncontrollably for several minutes. "Get her," Blake yelled, wiping his face, but as he stepped forward, his boot caught on something thin and metallic. Before he could react, snap! A coiled wire from the ground whipped up, hooking around his leg, sending him crashing into the dirt. He screamed, trying to pull free, but the trap tightened. Rex stumbled backward, panicking, and that's when he saw Lila's expression change. The calmness in her eyes turned to something else. Resolve. She slowly walked toward him, the sound of her boots deliberate and heavy. "You think it's funny," she said softly, "to scare people on lonely roads? To take what isn't yours?" Rex growled, trying to stand straight. You crazy farm chick." Lila cut him off with a look that could freeze blood. "My father built traps to protect what mattered. I built this one for you." Rex tried to move toward his bike, but another click sounded from the bag. A small metallic cylinder rolled out, flashing red. He froze. "Don't worry," Lila said, almost smirking. "It's not an explosive. It's just a tracker. I like to know where my pests run off to." She lifted her hand, revealing a small remote device. The red light blinked twice, then beeped softly. "Now," she whispered, "you'll never steal from anyone again without being watched." Blake, still tangled, shouted, "You're insane!" Lila crouched beside him, her voice low but cutting. "No, I'm prepared." The sound of approaching wheels echoed from behind. An old pickup truck appeared from the dust, driven by Sheriff Dale, a broad-shouldered man with a mustache who'd known Lila since she was a kid. He slowed down, looking at the scene in disbelief, the two bikers on the ground, coughing and tangled, while Lila stood calm, dust swirling around her. "What happened here, Lila?" he asked. She didn't look away from Rex. "They tried to take my bag." The sheriff got down, cuffing the men as they cursed and struggled. "Wes, they picked the wrong girl to mess with." Lila finally turned, her braid catching the sunlight. "They always do." As the sheriff drove away with the captured bikers in the back seat, Lila watched them disappear beyond the hills. The morning had fully broken now, the light spreading gold across her fields. She picked up her bag, still slightly smoking, and smiled to herself. But as she turned back toward her farm, her eyes hardened again. Because she knew something that even the sheriff didn't. Rex and Blake weren't the only ones in that biker gang. There were more, and they would come looking for payback. And she was ready for them too. She walked home slowly, her boots crunching in rhythm with the wind, her mind already planning the next trap. The farm girl no one ever noticed had become a quiet legend of her own making, and somewhere deep inside, behind her calm eyes, burned a promise. The next time they came for her, she wouldn't just defend her home, she'd end it. As she disappeared behind the wheat field, the screen would fade to black and her last line would echo, "Never mistake quiet for weakness."